Well, good morning, everybody. Pastor Steve here. Thank you so much for joining me for today's devotion. We are in Acts chapter 24 in our Bible reading plan, and I hope you've already read this chapter and written in your journal what God has said to you. Let me ask you to do me a favor and let some people know about these devotions. Maybe those in your contacts, send out an email to some people or post something on Facebook. Spread the word and invite people to read the Bible with us and join me for these daily devotions. I depend on you to help me get the word out to others, so thank you for doing that. Today, what I want to talk about that really comes out of what God said to my heart as I was reading this chapter was about human nature. You know, we today, especially in America, like for things to be clear-cut, black and white, no gray, no middle ground. In today's culture, you're either for me or against me. You're with us or you're with them on this side or that side. There's no middle ground. We like to assign motives. In other words, somebody does something and we automatically say they did it for this reason. We assume we know why they did it. We assign motives to people, and usually that grows out of which camp we put people in. And yet the reality is life is more complex than that. The truth is many issues are more complicated or complex than that. In chapter 24, Paul has been taken to Caesarea, the Roman capital of the Judean province, a city located on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. And at this moment in time, a man named Felix is the governor of Judea, residing there in Caesarea. And we know that he was the governor of Judea from AD 52 to 59. In AD 59, he was succeeded by Festus. And we can date exactly when what happened in chapter 24 took place, because in chapter 25, after Paul had been in Caesarea for 2 years in prison with Felix as the governor, Felix is succeeded by Festus, which means that the events of chapter 24 took place within around the time period of AD 57 and 58. We know exactly when this happened. And Felix was a man like most of us with, he was complex, mixed motives, if you will. In verse 23, you see that he treated Paul during those 2 years kindly. Now, he was a prisoner, but he was still treated, somewhat kindly as a prisoner, if you will, by Felix. In verse 23, Felix had given orders to the centurion, the head of the Roman soldiers, for Paul to be kept in custody and yet have some freedom and not prevent any of his friends from ministering to him. So he allowed Paul's friends to visit him, to bring him materials to write letters with, to read, food, clothing, to care for him. So Paul was treated with some kindness by Felix. Felix also had some interest in Christianity. In verse 22, Felix, having a more exact knowledge about the way, the Christian way, put them off, saying, when Lysias, the commander, comes down, I will decide your case. And then he gives order for Paul to be treated well. Then in verses 24 and following, but sometimes later, Felix arrived with Drusilla, his wife, who was a Jewess, so he was married to a Jewish woman, and he sent for Paul and heard him speak about faith in Christ Jesus. So Felix invited Paul in to have one-on-one conversations, or he and his wife have conversations with Paul about the gospel, about Jesus. But he was also, there was evil and wickedness in Felix as well. In verse 25, it says, and as he was discussing righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, wow, they talked about a lot of things. Felix became frightened. He was under conviction. He became frightened about his future, his judgment. And then he said, Paul, go away for the present. And when I find time, I will summon you. He got scared. But here's the complication for Felix. Verse 26, at the same time he was interested in the gospel and in Jesus, at the same time in verse 26, he was hoping that money would be given to him by Paul. Therefore, he also used to send for him quite often and converse with him. He was hoping that Paul would pay him a bribe to let him go free. Paul never did. So here's a man who was complex, motivated by greed, wanting a bribe to be paid to him, but also at the same time really interested in knowing more about the Christian faith. He was a complex man, mixed motives, some good, some bad. Well, can we be honest? To varying degrees, that's true of all of us, isn't it? We have good motives and bad motives. And when you and I make decisions, it's not always because of just one thing. Sometimes there's a complex compilation of motivations that tilt one way or the other in the decisions we make. Is that not true? Can we not be honest and say that? So why is it in our culture we always assign one motive to everybody for anything they do? Why is it we make everything absolutely black and white when the truth is that we as human beings are sometimes complicated? I think the more we understand that, the more we can communicate effectively with people. The more we can effectively share the gospel and have conversations with people. And we need, listen, in America, we need to stop putting everybody in this camp or that camp and making everything completely black or white, me or you, over there or over here, because life is more complex than that. And I think if we could learn to talk to each other like that, we might actually find some solutions to the problems that are facing our country. But until we do that, we're going to keep shooting at each other and killing each other, and nothing's ever going to get better. That's the word for today. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.